for better, for worse, for richer, for poorer, in sickness and in health. Richer, poorer, better, worse, and indeed physical ailments. I had a lot of that. And like most partners, we stand by or stood by each other. I went through a lot, several operations, and an array of physical ailments. I think this sickness should, however, be qualified, don't you? Hi, I am Toyin Okanuga. Thank you very much for joining me again in these all so vital information that I provide. And I'm here again to discuss one very, very crucial aspect of what I live and breathe for. So yes, I'm Toyin Okanuga. I'm your author of Hush to Roar, my memoir, and I am your self-realization mindset expert through and through. So yes, I bet you were thinking, oh my word, she caused her divorce and she's saying it. Yes, that's the topic. I caused, or how I caused the divorce. Let's go through it. So I read those vows, those marriage vows that are always read out year after year, day after day. They're the same, right? Unless they're sort of like maybe, I don't know, tweaked here and there. But in the whole, that's how they are read or written, the narratives. I'm just going to say something. So I've got my notes. And yes, so let's dive in this and I'll show you how I caused my divorce, how you might have, how we all do in some respects. So again, a disclaimer, this is not a divorce based on sexual abuse, domestic abuse, physical abuse. So if you have any if you have any worries about that, or you believe you are a victim of any kind of abuse, please seek legal advice, support, so that you can take it that way. But this is different. But stay tuned. So Carl Jung was a Swiss psychiatrist. And if there's anything I've learned from my many years of different stages of difficulties in life that we all go through, I've now learned to suffer well. And you'll be like, whoa, who wants to suffer well? Bear with me. To suffer justifiably is what I'll say. Now, I'll explain. Carl Jung, as I said, a Swiss psychiatrist, he said, neurosis is the avoidance of legitimate suffering. Although I don't agree with all Carl Jung's, theories, and, even Freud and all of them, not all of them I agree with, but this, I agree with it to a T, and I'll explain why. So, what is legitimate suffering? So according to Carl Jung, he alludes to the fact that we humans like to avoid the shame of unveiling the coat of the real us. We avoid the grief of loss, avoid the consequences that are rightly coming our way. I lay emphasis on consequences because I'll get to that in a minute. So, I knew that going out to tell my story, my memoir, Hush to Roar, please get your copy. And if it's your first time here, hey, subscribe to Hush to Roar so I can feed you with these golden nuggets. So, I digress. I say again. So when I released my story in October 2020, I knew that Hush to Roar, the roar, would cause an uproar in my family and beyond, because I told explicitly in that book what I had been through as a child. And I was abused sexually by my father from the age of 12 until I turned 15. And everything's in the book. People say you're brave, Toyin. I'll get to why I had to be brave. Before I released my story, I was suffering, crippling in shame. I had a disease to please. I'm still fighting it. I had no healthy boundaries. I'm still fighting those. I had excruciating physical and several operations, physical ailments and several operations growing up. This I learnt through my thorough research, that almost all the debilitating ailments that I had were because I had downregulated my immune system. And you'd be thinking, I thought I was listening about how you caused your divorce. Bear with me, guys. I've got my educated hat on here. Because when I learn, I teach. Thank you, my darling Maya Angelou. That's so key. So I go on. So I had excruciating physical ailments growing up. Several operations before I had my children. And when I had my children, oh my God, after that, the ailments carried on. And people were like, oh my gosh, it's always you, Toyin. So, as I said, I learned through my research that I had downregulated my immune system. I was always at alert as well. And that means that your body is never back to its equilibrium. I've done a lot of certificates in psychology, so bear with me if I nip in some terminologies here. So I was at alert throughout as an adult. So I said in sickness and in health. So the effect of the trauma on our body, mind and soul, specifically the mind and the soul, they're not physical, they are emotional sickness. And that's why I believe we should qualify that sickness in the marriage vows. Because there are so many emotional wounds that we have no idea that we have. And we say, yes, I do. In sickness and in health. Yes, if you break an arm, yes, I will be there for you. But when your heart's bleeding, I can't see it. So that's okay. I carry on. The problem was that the real sickness I had, even though I had those physical sicknesses where I had operations and they were physical, they were out there, the real debilitating illnesses I had, they were emotional. I had mental noise, crippling shame, and the effect of my complex trauma, because it's interpersonal, and you'll see another video where I talk about the types of trauma, so check that out. I had complex, that was the highest of the 3 types of trauma. Because of this complex trauma, which was undiagnosed, by the way, the brain structure and function, mainly the development of the hippocampus. Oh boy, but please read into the brain. So the hippocampus, we have a hippocampus, my amygdala, corpus callosum, and the cerebral cortex were affected. I won't go into what these are, you can read it up, but just figure it, just think about it's the brain. So all the neurons, everything within my brain, because of the abuse, if you know my story, you will know that I had a lot of traumatic events throughout my life, from the age of 8 all the way until I turned 15. And they were very overlapping, so that they were in quick spaces. So my body never really got down to be fully regulated and get back to the equilibrium. So this severe early stress associated with reduced synaptic connections within my brain, and yours too, if you're listening, it results in the hippocampal region, and this explains the difficulties in memory retrieval. You'll see in Hush to Roar how I said I could not retain information. That was one prayer I used to make every time when I went to church. Lord, please give me retentive memory, because I never had it. So those memory retrieval associated with a traumatic event and dissociative behavior that CSA survivors, childhood sexual abuse survivors, tend to suffer from. That's retrieval, because of the heightened, your amygdala is always expecting something bad to happen. So you can't use your evolved brain to think, because that's not important. You need to run or you need to freeze. That's always up there if you're in that heightened state. So, in addition to all this, everything about the amygdala activation being heightened alert is a crucial thing that happens when you have PTSD and major depression. And I'm sure I had those, but they were, again, not diagnosed because I didn't know I had anything. So I am going into a little bit of science because I need us to understand what sickness is. So there is evidence that the now this is, wow, mind-blowing when I was studying. So there is evidence that the etiologic, so that's something that contributes to the development of diseases or abnormalities of psychological trauma, yeah, those effects that I've explained earlier, there's evidence to show that those ones caused by someone who had sexual abuse as a child are similar, bear similarities with those who have physical traumatic brain injury, TBI. Imagine. So if you've been abused as a child and you had an accident and you had a brain injury which is physical, you both experience the same type of trauma. One's physical, but one's within the brain, and it's still affecting the structure and the functionality. The way you can see someone who's had a car accident or someone's been bumped or whatever or had a blow to the head, the same type of trauma. One's physical, one's emotional. That is mind-blowing. You experience the same because it involves so you have the similar neurobiological pathogenesis. So this means the study of diseases of the nervous system. So that was proven by Hadani and Efrati, and I believe it to be so. So I know you're thinking, oh, that's all just jargons. Please read into it. So how did I cause the divorce? After all my research over 15 years, I needed to breathe clean air. I was always constraining myself because of the buts in my life. I want to go and do this, but I'm a mistake child. My brain will be saying it. I won't even know that that's what I'm doing, but I can't do that because no one's meant to know who I really am. I'm a middle child, a mistake child, or ouch. I can't say that I really love my white foster parents because my other parents will be angry. So don't say that, Toyin. Forget about your foster parents. But again, I should be able to do that, speak to children, but I can't because I was sexually abused and there's so much shame and I can't look people in the eye. Buts were disturbing my creativity and to live full out. I never showed my hubby who I really was. To be honest, I didn't even tell myself who I really was. But I knew I had more in me than what I was serving up to the world. But I had been hiding and I was pretending so that I would be loved and accepted because I felt neglected growing up. The problem was I expected my hubby to accept me for what I was not. In other words, I served him my false personhood. That was not who I really am. And that's why I say I caused the divorce. Because I was false. And that's who he married. He married false Toyin. So, I showed him, that, I say, So when I showed him who I really was, it would be frustrating because that's not who he married. And I get it. And I get it. A lesson here, guys. Show people who you are frequently and as soon as possible. Very early. I got that from my darling brother. I feel like he's my brother. Pastor Keon Henderson. He's in Lighthouse Ministry in the US. One day I'd really wish to meet him because he's my brother. He gets me, and I feel like, please come, let me come. You know, the people in Nigeria don't get what I'm trying to do. They're thinking I'm bringing shame. Keon, he understands me. So Pastor Keon Henderson, Pastor PK, please come to Toyin's rescue. So he said that, and I thought, oh my gosh. So because I could not be accepted for what I could be, I tried to hide my pain of shame, but I had a vision that my calling was in my pain. I had it every day, guys. But hey, how do you do that? How do you know that you have that calling and you need to do it? By healing from the childhood trauma and healing from it. Inviting your hubby to heal with you, to seek help. Because you did both say in sickness and in health. What I had was emotional, mental sickness. It's still part of sickness. Right? So let's qualify that sickness. If you're out there and you are part of people who implement policies of marriages, please, let's qualify that sickness. Emotional, mental, childhood, adversity sickness. Will you be there? Because it's not fair for me to burden someone with all the baggage I had. That's very unfair for me to burden my hubby with that. So yes, that's part of how I caused the divorce. Because I expected him to accept me for what I was not. So when I was ready to be who I was through my healing, mba, it's not possible. Imba is an Igbo and it means no. It's difficult. But you say, of course, why don't they, should they love you? I know, I get it. But there's more to it than that. You have to heal together. There has to be an acceptance, and different people have different ways or perspectives to life. And you can only change yourself. You can pray, you can hope. But if you have a calling on your life, my time is limited. So, and I needed to heal. I'll carry on. So, I was dying in installments before my healing journey today. And I decided to go through the valley of the shadow of death. I decided to pay the high price of accepting and revealing the true me, the real me. This is what Carl Jung says is legitimate suffering. Why? Because I accept the consequences of revealing the true me. Kieran, please come and explain to everyone. He gets me. So I was ready when I came out in 2020. I knew the consequences. I had no words for them until I saw Carl Jung's term legitimate suffering. I thought, ooh, Toyin, that's what you're gonna get, because whoa. People are not going to want you to bring shame to the family, to reveal that it was your dad that abused you. Can you imagine? A lot of people know him. Oh my gosh. And I was ready, because I was ready to walk through the valley of the shadow of death. And that's what Psalm 23 means when you read it. Woo! In other words, it cost me a high price to be me, because I needed to heal holistically, not recover, heal holistically. In another video, you'll see how I say healing, not recovery, is what's important. So, and this, my dear friend, is what is known, as I said, legitimate suffering. It means being true to you and telling the world who you really are. This, in part, was the reason for my divorce. So most of the time, we want change in our lives, like I did growing up, and continue to inhale old air. It's impossible to inhale new air until we what? Exhale old air. So, yeah. This was coined by my dearest papa. He doesn't know he's my papa. He's my virtual mentor and papa, Bishop T.D. Jakes. I know, Kieran, we're sharing the same daddy. And I know he's your adopted daddy too, because I know your story and I cry when I read your story, Kieran. Oh, I love my Bishop T.D. Jakes. He's the father I never had. Daddy, I know. And Sarah, you're my sister. Sarah Jakes Roberts. And yes, Pastor Torre, you are my brother too. These are all the people I consume, because when you've got a broken mind, you can't study people who have broken minds. You've got to go to people who have healed and whole minds. I thank God for him and for all of them in my life. They don't know this. So, in other words, we avoid legitimate suffering by burying it under neurotic symptoms. So we self-medicate and we just drink, or we just go maybe prostitution, whatever it is you do. We are avoiding what we need to do to come out to heal. So rather than suffering directly, I believe I'm suffering directly, we suffer indirectly. It's still suffering, but I'd rather legitimize mine. Wouldn't you? Legitimize your suffering. What is it worth? Nothing. So we suffer indirectly these symptoms. And Carl Jung calls these neurotic avoidance. As I said, self-medicating. And I could not do that. So God couldn't bless the person I was pretending to be. I'd get things here and there, but my mind was all over the place. And God was telling me, Toyin, I need to bless you. But I was pretending to be something I was not. So I had to walk through the shadow of the valley of death and trust God. Trust God's promise that because I'm walking through my valley of divorce, through my valley of being ostracized by family, by my valley of letting some friends go, to heal and to share my story for the world to know the devastating impact of childhood sexual abuse on children, I have to hold to his promise that he will guide me, he will guide you, he will guide us through the valleys until we reach the sunny, open field on the other side. And I believe I'm there. Here, I feel amazing. And I've accepted the legitimate suffering. He is with us and won't ever leave us. He won't. And if we happen to stray away in the valley, he promises to leave the other 99 sheep just to find me, just to find you, wherever we may be. So, the fact of life. It wasn't my fault that I went through all that I did. It wasn't your fault that you went through all that you did as a child, as an adult, when you had no decision in the matter. Emotionally, physically, mentally, or indeed sexually, the sexual abuse you've encountered, that or I have encountered. Not our fault. But guess what, guys? The healing of our broken hearts is our responsibility. However you have, whatever that looks like to you, this is what it looks like to me. And in accepting the consequences of our healing, we will be able to inhale that clean air and exhale the bad air. This is legitimate suffering, and I'm okay with it. You can't heal your broken mind by studying other broken minds. I only now study those minds that I said have whole minds or healed minds, but study broken minds to see where I still need to heal from, and also how I can heal those that I have that are on my program. I had to study those you know, as I said, the ones have broken minds by using an array of authors, of scriptural, beautiful people, of scientists, those who stay current and relevant, that is, the scientists, those who I know who are timely. I study, I've read so many books. So this is 50. I've had to study those who, I said, heal other minds. I have a lot of family members, even if I don't have blood family members. We don't have to have blood family members, just have family members. How many billions of people are on this planet? You can have family. So these are the list of people that are my family, apart from some other biological family members. I've got my darling Papa Bishop T.D. Jakes, my sister, his daughter, Sarah Jakes Robert, her hubby Torre, and others such as Oprah Winfrey, Maya Angelou, Pastor Joyce Mayers, Dr. Joe Dispenza, Eckhart Tolle, Gary Zukov, Brené Brown, Dr. Wayne Dyers, Louis May, Chris Ardris. Single loop learning and double loop learning. I believe that's what this is. The list goes on, guys, and I won't stop. This is my healing. So, if you need that inner work to heal, don't forget to get in touch with me for that program. But it's holistic, it's not surface, it's not microwave. But now, over my whole years of studying, I've put that into a program. And this is no woohoo, and it's no, it's not fast food. It's what you consume on a daily, on a moment by moment, timely basis. Because why? Our brains are so complex that you can't fix it by just going to one therapist. One therapist won't heal you. It's a consumption of everything. You have to bring back the dopamine that you are starving, and you have to put loads of dopamine in, serotonin, everything that goes. If you don't, guys, I'll share you another video where I'll tell you what causes Alzheimer's. Dopamine. I've studied this and I'm like, oh my word. So guys, that is how I caused my divorce. There are links here. I would say serve people your most authentic self. People say, oh, people just keep going on about authenticity. If there was authenticity in the world today, you would see less atrocities in the world. My ladies and gentlemen, if you're out there, before you say, I do, when you show people your flowers, the beautiful you, make sure you show them and tell them your roots. I need to continue to keep my vision alive. And my vision is what my passion is. That one day, my children, your children, our children's children, our children's children's children will live in a world where childhood sexual abuse and other childhood maltreatments becomes a very, I emphasize, a very distant memory of the past. Because only then can people know who we really are. And they might see you as a flower. But don't forget, before you say, I do, tell them your roots. I love you guys. And remember, your inner child, it has a voice. If you suppress it, it will come out later. Don't suppress it. Let it roar. Thanks for joining me. I love you.